causing their prices to rise eligible. At the same
At the
time,
same
asset
time,
values
asset
soar.
values soar.
People borrow
People
huge
borrow
amounts of
huge
money to
amount
buy
of money
assets
to
as
buy
investments, causing their
investment,
prices to
causing their
rise even
price to
higher.
rise even higher.
People feel
People
wealthy.
feel wealthy.
So even
So
with the
even with the
accumulation of
accumulation of
lots of
lots of
debt,
debt, rising
rising incomes
incomes,
and
and
asset
asset
values
values
help
help
borrowers
borrowers to
remain
remain
creditworthy for
creditworthy
a
for a
long
long
time.
time.
But this
But this
obviously
obviously
cannot
cannot
continue
continue
forever.
forever, and it
And it
doesn't.
doesn't. Over
Over decades,
decades,
debt
debt
burdens
burdens slowly
slowly
increased,
increased,
creating
creating larger
larger
and
and
larger
larger
debt
debt repayments.
repayments.
At
At
some
some
point,
point, debt
debt repayments
repayments
start
start
growing
growing
faster
faster
than
than
incomes,
incomes,
forcing
forcing
people
people
to
to
cut
cut
back
back
on
on
their
their
spending.
spending.
And
And
since
since
one
one
person's
person's spending
spending
is
is
another
another
person's
person's income,
incomes
incomes
begin
begin to
to
go
go down,
down, which
which
makes
makes
people
people
less
less
creditworthy,
creditworthy,
causing
causing borrowing
borrowing to
to
go
go
down.
down. Debt
Debt repayments
repayments continue
continue
to
to rise,
rise,
which
which
makes
makes
spending
spending
drop
drops
even
even
further,
further,
and
and
the
the cycle
cycle
reverses
reverses itself.
itself. This is the
This is the
long-term debt
long-term debt
peak.
peak. Debt
Debt
burdens
burdens
have
have
simply
simply
become
become
too
too
big.
big for the United
For the
States,
United States,
Europe,
Europe,
and
and much
much
of the
of the
rest of the world,
rest
this
of the
happened
world.
in
This happened in
2008.
2008.
It happened
It
for the
happened for
same
the
reason it
same
happened
reason
in
it happened
Japan
in
in
Japan in
1989,
1989,
and in the
and in the
United
United
States
States
back in
back in
1929.
1929.
Now the
And now the
economy
economy
begins
begins
deleveraging.
deleveraging.
In a
In a
deleveraging,
deleveraging, people
people
cut
cut spending,
spending,
incomes
incomes are
fall,
poor,
credit
credit disappear,
disappears, asset
asset
prices drop,
prices drop,
banks get
banks get
squeezed,
squeezed,
the
the
stock
stock
market
market
crashes,
crashes,
social
social
tensions
tensions
rise, and the
arise, and the
whole
whole
thing
thing
starts to
starts to
feed on
feed on
itself the
itself
other
the
way.
other way. As
As
incomes
incomes
fall
fall and
and
debt
debt
repayments
repayments
rise,
rise,
borrowers
borrowers
get
get
squeezed.
squeezed.
No
No
longer
longer
credit
credit
worthy,
worthy,
credit
credit
dries
drives
up,
up,
and
and
borrowers
borrowers
can no
can no
longer
longer
borrow
borrow
enough
enough
money to
money to
make their
make
debt
their debt
repayments.
repayments.
Scrambling
Scrambling
to
to
fill
fill
this
this
hole,
hole,
borrowers
borrowers
are
are
forced to
forced to
sell
sell
assets.
assets.
The
The
rush to
rush to
sell
sell
assets
assets floods
floods the
the
market
market
at the
at the
same time
same
as
time as
spending falls.
spending falls.
This is when the
This
stock
is
market
when the stock
collapses,
market
the
collapses,
real
the
estate
real
market
estate
tanks,
market
and
tanks,
banks
and
get into
banks get into
trouble.
trouble.
As asset
As
prices
asset
drop,
will
the
drop,
value of
the
the
value
collateral
of the
borrowers
collateral
can put up
borrowers can
drops.
put up drops.
This makes
As asset price drop, the value of the collateral borrowers can put up drops. This makes borrowers even less creditworthy.
borrowers even less creditworthy.
Even less.
People
People
feel
feel
poor.
poor.
Credit
Credit rapidly
rapidly
disappears.
disappears.
Less
Less
spending,
spending,
less
less income,
income,
less
less
wealth,
wealth,
less
less
credit,
credit,
less
less
borrowing, and
borrowing,
so
and
on.
so on.
It's a
It's a
vicious
vicious
cycle.
cycle.
This appears
This appears
similar to a
similar to a
recession, but
recession,
the
but the
difference
difference
here
here
is that
is that
interest
interest
rates
rates
can't be
can be
lowered to
lowered
save
to
the
save
debt.
the debt.
In a
In a
recession,
recession,
lowering
lowering
interest
interest
rates
rates
works to
works to
stimulate
stimulate
borrowing.
borrowing.
However,
However,
in
in
a
a
deleveraging,
deleveraging, lowering
interest
interest
rates
rates
doesn't work
doesn't work
because
because
interest
interest
rates
rates
are
are already
already
low
low
and
and
soon
soon
hit
hit
0%.
0%. So the
So the
stimulation ends.
stimulation ends. Interest
Interest
rates
rates
in
in
the
the
United
United
States
States hit
hit
0%
0%
during the
during the
deleveraging of the
deleveraging of the
1930s
1930s and
and
again
again
in
in
2008.
2008. The
The
difference
difference
between a
between a
recession
recession
and
and
a
a
deleveraging
deleveraging
is
is
that
that
in a
in a deleveraging,
deleveraging,
borrowers'
borrowers'
debt
debt burdens
burdens
have
have
simply
simply
gotten
gotten
too
too big
big
and
and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates.
can be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders
Lenders realize
realize,
that debts have
lenders realize that debt have become too large to ever be fully paid back.
become too large. In a deleveraging, borrowers' debt
Borrowers
burdens have simply gotten too big and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders
Lenders
realize that
realize
debts
that
have
debt
become
have
too
become too
large to
large
ever be
to ever be
fully
fully
paid
paid
back.
back.
Burdens have simply gotten too big and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders realize that debts have is that in a deleveraging,
Borrowers'
debt
debt
burdens
burdens
have
have
simply
simply
gotten
gotten
too
too
big
big
and
and
can't be
can't be
relieved by
realized.
lowering interest rates. The difference between a recession and a deleveraging is that in a deleveraging, borrowers' debt burdens have simply gotten too big and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates.
The difference between a recession and a deleveraging is that in a deleveraging, borrowers' debt burdens have simply gotten too big and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders realize that debt have become too large to ever be fully paid back.
Interest rates in the United States hit 0% during the deleveraging of the 1930s and again in 2008.
The difference between a recession and a deleveraging is that in a deleveraging, borrowers' debt burdens have simply gotten too big and can't be relieved by lowering interest rates. Lenders realize that debt have become too large and ever been fully paid back. Borrowers have lost their ability to repay, and their collateral has lost value. They feel crippled by debt.
To ever be fully paid back. Borrowers have lost their ability to repay and their collateral has lost value. They feel crippled by the debt. They don't even to ever
Borrowers have lost their ability to repay, and their collateral has lost value. They feel crippled by debt.
be fully paid back.
Borrowers have lost their ability to repay, and their collateral has lost value.
They feel crippled by the debt.
They feel crippled by debt. They feel crippled by the debt. They feel crippled by the debt.
They don't even to ever be fully paid back.
Borrowers have lost their ability to repay, and their collateral has lost
They
value.
feel crippled by the debt.
They feel crippled by the debt. They feel crippled by the debt. They don't even want more.
They don't even want more.
Lenders stop lending, borrowers stop borrowing. Think of the economy as being not creditworthy just like an individual. They feel crippled by the debt. They feel crippled by the debt. They don't even want more. Lenders stop lending, borrowers stop borrowing. Think of the economy as being not creditworthy just like an individual.
Not creditworthy, just like an individual.
So what do you do about leveraging? The problem is that burdens are too high and they must come down. There are four ways this can happen. 1. People, businesses, and governments cut their spending. 2. Debts are reduced through default and restructuring. 3. Wealth is distributed from the haves to the have-nots.
2. Debts are
Reduced to the default and restructuring.
3. Wealth is redistributed from the haves.
Wealth is distributed from the have. Wealth is distributed from the haves to the have-nots. 3. Wealth is distributed from the haves to the have-nots. And
to the have-nots.
And finally, 4. The central bank prints new money. These four ways have happened in every leverage in modern history. Usually, spending is cut first.
As we just saw, people, businesses, and even governments tighten their belts and cut their spending so that they can pay down their debt.
As we just saw, people, businesses, and even governments tighten their belts and cut their spending so that they can pay down their debt.
This is often referred to as austerity.
This is often referred to as austerity.
When businesses and even governments
tighten down the belts and cut their spending so that they can pay down their debt.
This is often referred to as austerity.
This is often referred to as austerity. When borrowers stop taking on new debt and start paying down old debt, you might expect the debt burden to decrease.
Taking on new debts and start paying down old debts, you might expect the debt burden to decrease. Austerity. People, businesses, and even governments
tighten their belts and cut their spending so that they can pay down their debt. This is often referred to
as austerity. As we just saw, people, businesses, and even governments tighten their belts and cut their spending so that they can pay down their debt. This is often referred to as austerity.
This is often referred to as austerity. This is often referred to as austerity. This is often referred to as austerity. When borrowers stop taking on new debts and start paying down old debt, you might expect the debt burden to decrease.
When borrowers stop taking on new debts and start paying down old debts, you might expect the debt burden to decrease. When borrowers stop taking on new debt and start paying down old debt, you might expect the debt burden to decrease. But the opposite happens because spending is cut. The opposite happens.
But the opposite happens.
When
Borrowers stop taking on new debts and start paying down old debt, you might expect the debt burden to decrease.
But the opposite happens.
But the opposite happens. Because spending is cut.
Because spending is cut.
Spending is cut, and one man's spending is another man's income. It causes incomes to fall. Therefore, faster than debts are repaid. Therefore, faster than debts are repaid, and the debt burden actually gets worse.
Spending is cut, and one man's spending is another
Another
man's
man's income. It causes incomes to fall.
They fall faster than debts are repaid, and
Therefore, faster than debts are repaid, and the debt burden actually gets worse.
because spending is cut, and one man's spending is another
man's income. It causes incomes to fall. Therefore, faster than debts are paid, and the debt burden actually gets worse. And one man's spending is another man's income. It causes incomes to fall. Therefore, faster than debts are paid, and the debt burden actually gets worse. As we've seen, this cut in spending is deflationary and painful. Businesses are forced to cut costs, which means less jobs and higher unemployment. This leads to the next step. Debt must be reduced. Many borrowers find themselves unable to repay their loans, and the borrower's debts are lender's assets. When the borrower doesn't repay the bank, people get nervous that when a borrower doesn't repay the banks, people get nervous that the bank won't be able to repay them.
To repay their loans.
And the borrower's debt, lender's asset. When a borrower doesn't repay the bank, people get nervous that the bank won't be able to repay them, so they rush to withdraw their money from the bank. Banks get squeezed, and people, businesses, and banks default on their debt.
Borrowers find themselves unable to repay their loans and higher unemployment. This leads to the next step. Debts must be reduced.
Many borrowers find themselves unable to repay their loans, and the borrower's debts are lender's assets. When the borrower doesn't repay the bank, people get nervous that the bank won't be able to repay them, so they rush to withdraw their money from the bank.
This leads to the next step. Debts must be reduced.
Many borrowers find themselves unable to repay their loans, and the borrower's debts are lender's assets. When the borrower doesn't repay the bank, people get nervous that the banks won't be able to repay them, so they rush to withdraw their money from the bank. Banks get squeezed, and people, businesses, and banks default on their debts. This severe economic contraction is
a depression.
This severe economic contraction is a depression.
Get squeezed, and people, businesses, and banks default on their debts. This severe economic contraction is a depression.
It's a severe economic contraction. It's a depression. It's a depression. This severe economic contraction. This severe economic contraction is a depression. A big part of the depression is people discovering much of what they do once their wealth is really there. Let's go back to the bar. When you bought a beer and put it on a bar tab.
Discovering much of what they thought was their wealth isn't really there. Let's go back to the bar. When you bought a beer and put it on a bar tab, you promised to repay the bartender. Your promise became an asset of the bartender. But if you break your promise, if you don't pay him back and essentially default on your bar tab, then the asset he has isn't really worth anything. It has basically disappeared. Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means the lenders get paid back less or get paid back over a longer time frame or at lower interest rates than was first agreed. It has basically disappeared. Many lenders don't want their assets to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed. Somehow, a contract has basically disappeared. Many lenders don't want their assets to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back. Lenders don't want their assets to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, disappear. Many lenders back and essentially default on your bar tab, then the asset he has isn't really worth anything. It has basically disappeared.
Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed.
Debt restructuring means lenders get basically disappeared.
Many lenders don't want their Many lenders don't want their assets to disappear. Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear. Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear.
Agreed, then the asset he has isn't really worth anything. It has basically disappeared.
Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear, and
asset he has isn't really worth anything. It has basically disappeared.
Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear and agree to the debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means the lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed.
Some restructuring means lenders get paid back disappeared.
Many lenders don't want their asset to disappear and agree to debt restructuring. Debt restructuring means the lenders get paid back less, or get paid back over a longer time frame, or at a lower interest rate than was first agreed.